detainees in Afghanistan. Another death was involved a man who was beaten to death by a CIA contractor. Human Rights determined in 2006 that nearly 100 detainees died in U.S. custody in Afghanistan and Iraq facilities. And almost half of the cases were clearly homicides. The bottom line is that many detainee homicides in Iraq and Afghanistan were the direct result of approval and orders from the highest levels of government, and that high officials in the government are accomplices. Any meaningful investigation of those homicides would reveal the initial authorizations and link to their homicides. This is a huge cover-up. This, like I said, this stuff goes to the highest levels. And on May 14, 2009, Kurt Nimmo also wrote, "More broken promises. Obama's military commission's detainee photos betrayal." According to Evan Perez of the Wall Street Journal, the Obama administration is in the process of retooling military commission trials that were conducted for prisoners held at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Perez reports that Obama is struggling to establish his counterterrorism policies, balancing security concerns against attempts to alter Bush administration practices that he harshly criticized. And there's a video up at harrythomas.info under the weekly news section for May 27, 2009. You can watch Evan Perez talk about this in the interview. Paul Joseph Watson wrote on Thursday, May 21st, 2009 at prisonplanet.com. Media ignores real controversy behind the torture photos. They show prison guards raping children. And yes, this is true. The real reason behind Obama's reversal of the decision to release the torture photos is almost completely ignored by the corporate media. The fact that the photos show both U.S. and Iraqi soldiers raping teenage boys in front of their mothers. The Obama administration originally intended to release photos depicting torture and abuse of detainees in Afghanistan and Iraq by the end of May, following a court order arising out of a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit first filed by the ACLU in 2004. However, a reversal of Obama's decision was announced this week after he changed his mind after viewing some of the images and hearing warnings from his generals in Iraq and in Afghanistan that such a move would endanger U.S. troops deployed there. Of course they would. They're over there raping and torturing people. Totally against international law. These are war crimes. War crimes that are continually being played out. Former Governor Jesse Ventura today offered a solution to the controversy surrounding President Obama's decision to reverse an earlier promise to release the torture photos. Let Ventura see the photos on behalf of the American people and then decide if they should be released. Ventura told the Alex Jones Show today, "How about if I step forward on behalf of the taxpayers and the citizens of the great United States of America? And I want to go public with this. I will represent us. Let me go where these photos are. Let me go inside and see. Let me come out and report back to what these photos are." I think it's a very, very sound idea. And he went on to say, "I think I have a right to do that. I think they have no right to keep me from doing that. You know why? I pay their salaries, and I'm a governor, I'm a mayor, I'm a former Navy SEAL. I have had top secret security clearance. I think I'm fully qualified to walk in and view these photos. I'll report it to the public." And I believe him. He has been actually on the circuit. And Ron Paul came out yesterday with his Texas Straight Talk report. And this is what he had to say.
Hello, this is Ron Paul with your weekly update for May 25th. While Congress is sidetracked by who said what to whom and when, our nation finds itself at a crossroads on the issue of torture. We are at a point where we must decide if torture is something that is now going to be considered justifiable and reasonable under certain circumstances, or is America better than that? Enhanced interrogation, as some prefer to call it, has been used throughout history, usually by despotic governments to cruelly punish or to extract politically useful statements from prisoners. Governments that do these things inevitably bring shame on themselves. In addition, information obtained under duress is incredibly unreliable, which is why it is not admissible in a court of law. Legally valid information is freely given by someone of sound mind and body. Someone in excruciating pain or brought close to death by some horrific procedure is not in any state of mind to give reliable information, and certainly no actions should be taken solely based upon it. For these reasons, it is illegal in the United States and illegal under Geneva Conventions. Simulated drowning or waterboarding was not considered an exception to these laws when it was used by the Japanese against U.S. soldiers in World War II. In fact, we hanged Japanese officers for war crimes in 1945 for waterboarding. Its status as torture has already been decided by our own courts under this precedent. To look the other way now when Americans do it is the very definition of hypocrisy. Matthew Alexander, author of How to Break a Terrorist, used non-torture methods of interrogation in Iraq with much success. In fact, one cooperative jihadist told him, quote, "I thought you would torture me, and when you did not, I decided that everything I was told about Americans was wrong. That's why I decided to cooperate," close quote. Alexander also found that in Iraq, the number one reason foreign fighters flocked there to fight were the abuses carried out at Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo. Our policy of torture was directly and swiftly recruiting fighters for Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Alexander's experiences unequivocally demonstrate that losing our humanity is not beneficial or necessary in fighting terror. The current administration has reversed its position on releasing evidence of torture by the previous administration, and we must ask why. A great and moral nation would have the courage to face the truth so it could abide by the rule of law. To look the other way necessarily implicates all of us and would, of course, further radicalize people against our troops on the ground. Instead, we have the chance to limit culpability for torture to those who were truly responsible for these crimes against humanity. Not everyone who was given illegal orders obeyed them. Many FBI agents understood that an illegal order must be disobeyed, and they did so. The others must be held accountable so that all of us are not targeted by blowback for the complicity of some. The government's own actions and operations in torturing people and in acting on illegally obtained and unreliable information to kill and capture are the most radicalizing forces at work today, not any religion or the fact that we are rich and free. The fact that our government engages in evil behavior under the auspices of the American people is what poses the greatest threat to the American people, and it must not be allowed to stand. Thanks for calling this update. A new update is placed on this number, 888-322-1414, every Monday morning, the written text of which can be found on my website, www.house.gov/Paul, under the heading Texas Straight Talk. Thanks for calling.
And Ron Paul knows what he's talking about. He's been in Congress for over 20 years. He's been fighting this system from the inside. And that's exactly what Campaign for Liberty is all about at campaignforliberty.com, where it helps people get together and find the resources that they need to take back their governments at a local level. And if you haven't noticed, Dick Cheney has been on the news circuit promoting torture and saying, well, if Obama, goes against our policies, we're going to be unsafe. There's going to be another attack. There's going to be another terrorist attack, which to me is more of the fear-mongering that we've seen in the past. And the Jones report came out on May 21st, 2009 with Jesse Ventura. Cheney should be waterboarded, but couldn't survive it. Ventura suggests that Dick Cheney should be waterboarded before supporting the controversial torture technique, but he doesn't believe that his weak heart would be able to survive the undergoing. And I think Mr. Ventura is right here. And I'll tell you what, I bet you if you waterboarded Cheney, you could get him to admit to the Kennedy assassination. You know what I mean? And, you should look at that, because that's exactly what they did to the 9/11 patsies, who, you could just look at them guys and tell that there's no possible way they could have had the resources or the opportunity to pull off the magnitude of attacks that happened on September 11, 2001. Unfortunately, these guys were tortured patsies. And like I said, with waterboarding, you could probably get Dick Cheney to admit to the Kennedy assassination, which holds no weight. No weight at all. And it's an embarrassment to the international community. The international community is looking at us like we're barbarians, just allowing this to happen. Now, when Benazir Bhutto was assassinated, I reported on the show that, how would they have known if she switched vehicles so many different times and had such a secret itinerary? How could they have possibly known where she was? I remember a news article that I reported on where Arlen Specter and Kennedy was the next stop on her schedule. And these guys are both minions for the New World Order.